Your Excellencies, Dr. Turki, Dean Mokhtar, it's a great pleasure for us, the Food Security Program, to host such a distinguished group of guests, plus a wonderful and very important speaker, Dr. Turki Al-Rasheed from Saudi Arabia. I would like to pass on, without much ado, to Dean Mokhtar in order to introduce our distinguished guest speaker today. And please welcome Dr. Turki and Dean Mokhtar for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. This is a very special day for many, many reasons. This hall, Mr. Bayoud's hall, has not been inaugurated, and this is the first event that we held at this event. So it's really a pleasure for us to inaugurate it with a real scholarly activity, welcoming excellencies and guests. Thank you, Martin and Rachel, for all the hard work you did behind the scene to make this event possible. Good morning to all of you. Your Excellency Walid Bukhari of Saudi Arabia, Your Excellency Dr. Hamad Al-Shamsi of the UAE, and Your Excellency Al-Najjari of Egypt, Mr. Marwan Saleh of Saudi Arabia, Mr. Eli Rizq of the Lebanese Saudi Business Development Commission, Dr. Al-Rasheed, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome all of you here at this very distinguished lecture. Dr. Turki Al-Rasheed and I goes back to in fact, the first time we met, we were working together on a food security conference in Qatar, and since then, we've been following up each other's work, and it's a delight for me to introduce him as a lecturer inaugurating this special hall of Mr. Bayoud. Dr. Rasheed is a CEO of a Golden Grass Incorporated. He had established that organization in 1982 and has grown to become one of the leading agriculture companies in Saudi Arabia. We all know the importance of food security in this region. We all know the importance of the private sector in mobilizing the food security in this region. So we're delighted to have the private sector perspective that will augment some of the knowledge generated at this institution that has a lot of heritage in being firsts. I would go on and on with Dr. Rasheed's contribution, but I'd like to highlight his role in the private sector in ensuring food security within the Middle East. He has been a pioneer in this area, and we hope that this is a beginning of expanding the role of private sector in the food security in this region. Without any further ado, please, Dr. Turki Al-Rasheed.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I presume everybody here also speaks Arabic, so if I flip back and forth, I guess that will be understood. Okay, well, my talk is very short. I could make it in 30 seconds, but firstly, I really thank His Excellency who came here and give the importance of the food securities. I thank the universities for being the platforms of taking this place as agriculture. I don't know whether many of you, especially in the agriculture field, they see the value or the importance of your job. For me, you are the future. You are the past and you are the present. Food is the most important things. Many people talk to you about very high tech, talk to you about weapons, talk to you about security. For me, security is basically three things. As you could see in the picture there, it's profit, planet, people. So you get those three, and then you can go on from there, which is you will meet the 17 Sustainable Development Goals for the United Nations. So food, agriculture is the issue. نقول بسم الله, and we will go on to our This is my opening statement. It's really great pleasure to be here. And food security is not about food. It's all about securities. Chronic hunger, threatened individuals. Achieving food security require capable and effective government. Food security is the political aspect of agriculture development. I have the following messages. A message for the decision maker, a message for the academic, a message for the business people, a message for the future leader. And I'm hoping we have a handful of leaders in this room today. Decision maker. Food security, strengthening countries, national security, sustainable agriculture development is one of the best tools to enhance security, alleviate poverty, promote economic growth. What's my message to the academic? The purpose of this talk is to provide food for thought for a broader discussion on the way in which greater sustainable agriculture development and geopolitics interest. For the business people, agriculture has a lot of potential. And industry and social agriculture can be profitable, business financially and sustainability. And don't forget, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, كل طير يأكل من هذه الأرض, it is for the benefit of everybody. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala يبارك لكم في anything you do when you make it for the common good. Okay, my content of the presentation, as you could see here, I have an introduction, I have the importance of foods, definitions, because we have to know definition. We cannot speak about many areas unless we have to define what are the definition of the talk we are talking about. Social agriculture. Anybody knows what is social agriculture? Have anybody heard about social agriculture? Any volunteer? Any volunteer? Go on. What's social agriculture? Thank you. And some of these materials are experts from my book, Agriculture Development Strategies, the Saudi Experience. It's available in English and it's available in Arabic. Okay, for the scientist, there is a belief held that by many researchers is associated with activity that remote from the daily life. A lot of researchers, they work on their own laboratory and they think they live in their own bubbles, in their own cuckoos. And there is a growing number of people outside laboratory that believe on production and transferring the knowledge to be a useful knowledge. One of the things that I always have when I talk to my colleague at the University of Arizona or I talk to the PhD student, I could say, how can it be doable? Whatever you do, you have to ask yourself, what are you doing this for? Are you doing it just to get a certificate? Get a piece of paper? Trust me, if you got a piece of papers, you're not going to get a job for that. You have to know why did you get that piece of papers, and you have to justify it. So, the difference between the two groups in the research philosophy, approach, and strategy and perception of how knowledge can be created or constructed in rigorous and meaningful way in order to answer the research. I'm sure most of you knows all these numbers. I'll give you a few seconds just you go through it. In 2050, we have a population will reach to 9.8 billion peoples. The Arab worlds are expected to be 423 million peoples. In order to feed this large and more urban most people now are moving into the urban society rather than the village. When you move into urban, your expenses, your food habits change. And as you could see, we became one of the worst countries in the world as far as diabetes and overweight goes. So we have to increase our annual cereal production by 70%. We have to produce 3.0 billion tons from 2.1 trillion today. And meat production must go up. 50% of the world population live in less than $2 per day. But I really don't want to go with this $2 per day business. And I think it's appropriate that is we talk about sufficient line. We call it اللي هو خط الكفاية. فخط الكفاية هو الذي نعتمده أكثر مما نعتمد اللي هو الفقر. And I'll be talking more about خط الكفاية. The GCC import about 23.6 billion US dollars. Saudi Arabia account for 65% of that. Food imports in Saudi Arabia are projected to reach 35 billion. And we have a population's growth. What is the main challenge in front of the Arab world and agriculture? Any volunteer? Yeah, thank you. So we have to, everything we could manage, including water. And we will be talking about what are the challenges. And you have to understand, water is not only for Saudi Arabia. I only know one country in the world have a sufficient water, which is Argentina. All the rest of the world have a big problems with water. The Agala River or aquifer, which is the basket bread of the US from South Dakota to Texas, it is dropping tremendously. More than 2,000 wells just went dry. So it's a big problems everywhere. So don't think it's only your problem, it's the problem of everybody. When we could do something about it. Food export in Lebanon, as you could see here, I'm not here to tell you about Lebanon. You know more about Lebanon than I ever will know. But these are some of the figures that I could grab and I could present to you here that was available to me about the exports, what do they export and what are their strengths and weakness somehow. What is my message to the private sectors? Agri-industrial sector, which is encompass food security, is a very attractive area for investment, cooperation, benefit between Lebanon and the Middle East. And I really hope that is Saudi Arabia, Emirates, and other GCC countries will play a major role in the agriculture investment. Many people talk to you about high-tech, talk to you about many things. Agriculture is a very high-tech, and I think that is the role of Saudi Arabia and GCC to implement and to improve the life of thousands and thousands of people in the village. Urban farming in Lebanon can be a win-win situation. Lebanon, moderate climate, rich soil, and abundant water resources provide an ideal. What I meant by abundant water comparing to Saudi Arabia. So it's all relative, you know.
Vertical farming, that's it.
We will be talking about vertical farming. I'm glad you asked that because vertical farming is basically, it's for the city, for city farming. In London, they have this tunnels underneath London. They don't know what to do with it from World War II, so they converted it into greenhouses. And we'll be talking more about it after a while. What is really my purpose? My purpose is, number one, poverty. Number two is hunger. And the third one, I didn't put it here, is the public health. Let's talk about definition. Can you please read for me the first definition?
Sustainable development.
Yes. What is sustainable development?
Is a development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their needs.
Can you please read the second one for me? Yes.
Economic sustainability, in order to be truly sustainable, a farm must be economically profitable. Sustainable agriculture can improve the economic viability of a farm in a number of ways. In the short term, improving soil management and crop rotation can increase yields, while in the medium and long term, improved soil quality and water availability, as well as other environmental benefits from sustainable practices, may raise the value of the farm and provide payments for environmental services.
Excellent. Thank you. مذاكرة كويس ما شاء الله. Okay, this is the role of agriculture. It improves food security, promote economic growth, water optimization, government social responsibility and private social responsibilities, employment, poverty reduction, depopulations of the rural area. The following slide will discuss above the detail. Food securities. There is a lot of definitions of food security. Can you please read for me the food securities? You, yes.
Means that food is available at all times, that all persons have a means of access to it. That it is nutritionally adequate in terms of quantity, quality, and variety, and that it is accessible within the given culture.
Thank you. The world as well, don't forget, I have a bad habit. Whenever I see somebody who's not paying attention, usually he's my target. He's the one I always ask him. So, the world, as a World Bank, have forgotten how important is food. And it's really true. We really think food is available in the supermarket. Whenever you're ready, just go to food market and you'll find it in the supermarket. Well, it doesn't exist like that. Agriculture and food security have become the core of international agenda, in which called by the G2080. Many people think weapons is dangerous. No. Atomic bombs killed almost 400,000 people. Potatoes in 1870 killed 1.6 million people. So, food. Economic development is a sustainable boost in the standard of living. It implies an increase in per capita income in every citizen. It also leads to the creation of more opportunity on the sector of education, healthcare, and employment, and the conservation of the environment. Traditionally, agriculture and economic consider that growth in the farming sector provided food, raw materials, labors, and foreign exchange necessary. Unfortunately, we're moving more now into a service economy, and we are neglecting food. It's a very bad story, but at the same time, it was a good story. 2009 and 2007, 2008, when we had the food crisis, it have alerted us of how important food security is. We are operating almost now at a full capacity. One crisis in the food supply, we will have a major crisis. As an agriculture, wheat, most of the society now, they grow wheat from one variety called Yucca Rojo. It's an excellent crop. It provides you excellent. Kullu excellent, mashallah. But have one problem. that it is highly sustainable, highly mu'arrad, susceptible to rust. And if rust can fly with wind, if rust break down in the world, it will wipe out almost the entire wheat production in the world. And that is very scary. I'm not here to scare you, but I'm trying here to, my job to do two things with you today: to provoke you and to motivate you. Provoke you to ask a lot of questions, and to motivate you that whatever you do, it is the future of our life. This is the economic growth: self-sufficiency, food security, self-sufficiency, improve rural development, minimize depopulations from rural area, and create jobs. Many people said Saudi Arabia can work all in industry. Saudi Arabia is a hydrocarbon country. If we hired every single Saudis in the field of hydrocarbon, we will require only 3% of the labor force. What are we going to do with 97% of the rest? Middle East government challenges. Food shortage resulting in soaring food prices raise questions about the long-term perspective for food. As we said, in 2008, things went back. Every country stopped their own production to sell outside. Population growth, rural depopulation, high unemployment, environmental degradation, reduction in the arable land, and water scarcity. What can we do about water? Water scarcity in Saudi Arabia and the Middle East is one of the limited factors. And we have about 8 billion cubic meters of water renewable in Saudi Arabia. That's our water, which is we could work with. And that's why Saudi Arabia have stopped their wheat production in 2016. The world average of water consumption is 71% of water worldwide goes to agriculture. So the major user of water in the world is agriculture. The GCC countries, particularly Saudi Arabia, it was decided to stop it in 2016. Can anybody tell me what does this picture mean? Sorry, I cannot go any more away. Okay. What does this picture mean? Any volunteer?
Self-irrigation.
What is it?
Irrigation.
Okay, exactly. Saudi Arabia produces a lot of dates, and it requires about 250 liters per day of water. If we go with this one here under the ground, we could take it up to 70. So we reduce it more than 70%. Back again, CSR, corporate social responsibility, as we said, planet, people, profits. It's a whole set of value, issues, and process that campaign must address. If you cannot have profit, you're going to lose. So it is profit and people and planet. You got to keep it all within that framework in order to be. If it's not profitable, it's going to go out of business. If it's not taking care of the people, it will not be sustainable. It involves being clear about the company purposes and taking into account the need of all companies, stakeholders. You must take in consideration all the stakeholders. If you don't take the benefits of all the stakeholders, you're not going to get anywhere. Youth unemployment, I'm sure you all knows about it. And Middle East is about 21%. Poverty in Lebanon. Unfortunately, I read a good book. It was in 2000, published in 2003, about poverties in Lebanon. I think it talked about 60%. And I was trying to get the new version of that book or a new data about Lebanon poverties, and I could not find it. One of the biggest problems and challenges in our life today, we politicalize everything, including numbers. Any numbers available, we go and make it political. What is the poverties? We don't know. In some countries, it's a very big red line. You cannot talk about poverties. You cannot talk about diseases. You cannot talk about distributions of wealth. And if we don't know the numbers, we cannot solve the problems. So, mass migration. Migration is another major factor. And I always look at Syria, and I give a threat to all lectures I give. Syria is about 20 million people. Look what the refugees of the Syrian did. Could you imagine other countries? Could you imagine a country with 100 million people? They start to migrate, what they will do. So we got to look ahead. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala atana aqul. Tabassaru. We have to see. We know what it is. We smell, we see, we hear. If you don't process all this, you're not going to get anywhere. So we could talk here about 2007 and 2008, and then the embargo, and then everybody start to keep his food for himself. The Arab world increase their population, the migration of rural area, and you could see on the pictures here. You could see it. Saudi Arabia was only 48% in the 70s. And now it's 88% in Jeddah, Dammam, Riyadh. So the whole country of Saudi Arabia, only 12% live in the rural area. The rest live in 3 areas only. Middle East country are a major investor in agriculture land in developing country. But it has a lot of obstacles and challenges. And many times the rulers of the country themselves, they don't want you to invest. Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, they were trying to invest abroad, but challenges are a major issues here. What law do we depend? I mean, most simple question, what law are we talking about? Are we talking about international law? Are we talking about local law? Are we talking about common law? What law are we talking about? The scale and the nature of investment have raised international concern, and we need to have it all cleared out, spelled out. Personally, I was trying to invest in Sudan for the last 22 years, and I failed because of that simple question. What law and how could we do it? And I will give you a proposal in a few minutes. This are the disadvantage and the advantage of investment. If Saudis invest in Lebanon, these are the disadvantage and these are the advantage. Whether you take it Lebanon, you could put it with other countries. And you could go with any, and risk is very high. People could say, well, you could go to America. America provides the same risk to us as Ethiopia. We have invested in Arizona. We put almost $200 million in Arizona. And when we invest, rather than they call us heroes, because we have converted the area into a very nice area, they call us land grabber. We steal the water of Arizona, and we exported the waters of the US to Saudi Arabia. So I'm talking about here about Al-Mara'i investment in the border between Arizona and California. We produce hay and we ship it to Saudi Arabia. I did a study a few years ago, and these are the countries ranked by the Saudis of what is their top investment. Sudan, Egypt, Ethiopia are the top, and the bottom is Ghana, Thailand, and Mozambique. Saudi government meeting the challenges. We have identified the problem, and we try to go for it, and this is our for Saudi agriculture investment abroad. And we have to take it, the GMO, identify the country, agree with the hosting country, and they have to be in a good political terms with Saudi Arabia. I was talking to the ex-president of Argentina. She said, why Saudi don't invest? I said, Your Excellency, you have changed the law, the tax law, 16 times in 1 year in Argentina. How on earth we could invest with you? She didn't like my answer. So Saudi strategy is commodity: wheat, rice, barley, corn. On barley, Saudi alone import nearly 45% of the world's productions. These are the requirements for Saudi Arabia to invest in any country, and Lebanon meet all that criteria. As I said here, what law? Domestic law, international investment concern, or international investment agreement? Social agriculture, as we said here, is the other aspects of farming. Social agriculture is an agreement strategy that provided village farmer, both men and women, with access to appropriate innovation and link to achieve economic growth. One of the challenges that I am campaigning about is implementing social agriculture. We'll be talking a little bit more about social agriculture. These are for Saudi Arabia, and I hope His Excellency and the government of Saudi Arabia, this is what our benefits from the social agriculture. The short term, it will benefit a lot of people in Saudi Arabia. Medium term, it will improve their health and improve their income. Then we will take it as a model. In our case here, we consider Lebanon as Saudi Arabia, and we will do it on a small villages. And let's hope we could take a pilot project of $100,000 per village in Lebanon. So if we allocated $1 billion, that's at 10,000 villages in Lebanon. Could you imagine if we said an average village of a 1,000 person, 10,000, that's 1 million people in Lebanon will have a direct improvement that will provide them food, public health, and reduce their poverties. The long terms, it will be as a model for Syria, a model for Egypt, a model for Yemen, a model for a lot of the countries. I am a strong believer that we should not give money to politicians. We should give money. We should give money to educational institutions, and we go directly to villages scattered everywhere. So, thank you. Thank you. Saudi Arabia, soft power will be tremendously improved. Same with the United Arab Emirates, same with all the others, but don't just give the money and go away. You need to work on it. I got excited, I forgot even what to touch, so I'm sorry. Okay, way forward. Collaboration between the American University of Beirut and Saudi universities and the University of Arizona. Why the University of Arizona? For two things. One, I teach there. Two, I graduate from there. And third, it's one of the top universities in the world for arid land. So they are experts on arid land. collaboration with the Ministry of Agriculture, collaboration with the FAO, and funded by government agency and private sectors. Social agriculture is one of the most tools to enhance food security and alleviate poverty. Lack of investment for decades that let everybody move out of their farming area, and agriculture investment should not be rejected in a principle, although there are risks for the hosting and the developing country. A lot of challenges, but we could meet it. We talk here about the sustainability's triple bottom line. What is the solution? I propose, because most of the Arab world, they have their independence in 1965, 1950s, in the 50s and 60s. So it's a huge problem for them. So I always propose to African leaders, Arab leaders, to create a public company. And that public company owned by foreigners and locals. 60% locals, 40% international, and definitely we don't want the governments to be invested with us. So that's one of my concern. Local settler, we make an agreement with the president of a country, he bring his military, he kicked everybody out of that village, and then is that going to succeed? Of course not. So Saudi Arabia could provide long-term contract, provide them with cheap finance to secure their investment. Saudi government should act as a facilitator and at the same time protector between Saudi investor and the hosted country. We should support them, we should buy their product, but we buy their product, they must meet the standards of Saudi Arabia and they must meet the prices of the international. There is no free lunch here. They have to meet it. They have to meet the Saudi GCC consumer. We will consider it as their strategic allies. But your allies, you know, you pay a little bit here today, tomorrow less, but pretty much it should be within the international standards. Saudi investors should have full access to all investment rules and regulation. Don't take the words of the politicians. Agriculture is a long-term business. If you are a prime minister today, you're not going to be a prime minister tomorrow. Achieving agriculture requires strategic management capability in the public sector, taking into account the sustainability triple bottom line. And I'm including to you my latest book here, which is just published in January 2017. So it is to increase government effectiveness in order to achieve that kind of success. Closing remark, central government must not give all priority to urban. They should concentrate on rural area. There is an urgent need to monitor the extent, nature of the impact, because this will be, those laws must be clear to everybody. Government concerned that as population growth, increase, high unemployment, environment degradation, reductions of arable land, with effective urbanization, economic growth, and food security may emerge as one of the key issues for this century. Anything that I've talked about it here, you could find it is my book is available at مركز دراسات الوحدة العربية, that's in Arabic. In English, you could find it in Amazon. The Sustainable Development Challenges for the GCC, that's also available on Amazon. And my latest book is Public Governance and Strategic Management Capability. Thank you very much. Happy to take all your questions.
Turki for a fascinating lecture, really food for thought. I think you raised a very, very important topic, and I think you have reached the hearts and minds of our distinguished audience. So thank you very much. I would like now to open this session to questions from the audience. So please, if anyone would like to ask Dr. Turki or to expand maybe on this very, very exciting concept on social agriculture, please do. Abed will be running around with a microphone. Yes, sure. Dr. Riz.
Thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. Doctor, we would like to know about the funding program that the Saudi government has to establish partnership in foreign countries for their food sustainable plan, or food security plan. What is it called? How does it work? If you have any ideas, and how can we liaise it with the Saudi embassy? Only I'd like to thank the efforts made by His Excellency Mr. Walid Bukhari, who's really working since he has been appointed on sustainable development in rural areas like Qita, like Akka, like the south, where nobody else has ever dared to go in there. But we can see serious effort made on this. And as private sector, and people who are interested in rural area, we would like to join our efforts and see how we can start with one demo example with Saudi Lebanese partner.
Well, we have two areas here of discussion. The rules and regulations, as I touch it very quickly because I couldn't talk about it more in details. But it's quite clear and it's available whenever we want. We can provide you with all this information about investment. What we propose for Lebanon, it's a two-hat. It's a completely two different hat. One hat, which is the industrial agriculture. Industrial agriculture is a state of the art. ما فيها شم يرحميني. There is no, it has to be profitable. It's a very high tech. And the second user on the world of high tech is after the military اللي هي الزراعة. الزراعة هي ثاني قطاع يستعمل التكنولوجيا في العالم. So industrial agriculture, we can talk about vertical farming, which is basically you make a building, a greenhouse in a building. You could have a parking lot and you could put on top of that parking lot مزرعة, which is greenhouses. That kind of a farming, you could do it. The other kind of farming, which is the social. The social, it's not a profit-driven business. You have to make money, but it is more of a securities of the area. Like, for example, you put 10 villages, each village is about $100,000. You could promote whatever they are capable of. بيزرعوا رمان, بيزرعوا زيتون, and whatever related to them. And always concentrate the public health, الصحة العامة, provide them with food to reduce their poverties. And then that's when Saudi government and other GCC government could come and to help finance them, but not running them forever. They must be and
private sector can run them forever.
Private sector will take it for a profit. But what we can do is we can support these areas, that is they will make their own money and it will be helpful. And معالي السفير فكرته جيدة جدا اللي هي أوقاف لكل منطقة. لأن what we pay you today, we might pay you $1 billion today, but we will not pay you $10 next year. So it has to be a self-contained, but at a small scale with the involvement of all the stakeholders. That is a social improvement. When you talk about industrial farming, then we talk about vertical farming, or we could talk about specialized product farming, which is a very high-end consumer. Thank you.
Dr. Rasheed, you've always been, so your promise is two things, to be provocative and challenging, and
Yes.
to achieve both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My mission accomplished.
Thank you, absolutely. I'd like to echo your consortium that you mentioned about food security. AUB and FAFS would be delighted to join the University of Arizona and working with all of a regional project. I'd like to highlight that one of the biggest bottlenecks in food security is knowledge. The knowledge that we have in the South, or most of it borrowed from the North. So I would echo that this initiative is to generate knowledge based on our unique arid, semi-arid regions, based on our unique cultural heritage that builds on knowledge generation in this region for this region. And AUB and FAFS would be delighted to work with you in building capacity for the new future leaders of agriculture, and also to build a homemade technology for genetic engineering, for water reuse, for different land use management, for modeling, for optimization, and more importantly, water. Agricultural production does require water, and water is a scarce commodity in this region, and we need to look into water reuse, new ways of reducing water use, but also new ways of producing and treating water and reusing it, recycling, that allow us to move into a nexus of water, energy, food, health issues that are all connected. So thank you for the offer. We'll be delighted to work together towards a regional integration in water and food security. So thank you.
One thing's always I think we should consider, we don't take any more measurement of ton per hectares or tons per whatever. I think that the terms we need to concentrate is crops per drops, input per output. يعني كل قطرة ماي وين تروح؟ ما في قولة أنتجنا كم طن، نو، كم موية استهلكت لكي تنتج. هذا لما يكون الموية لها قيمة، you know, it's like لما بتاكل الخبزة 1 kilos of wheat, you have to consider it. This require between 1,000 to 2,000 liters of water. This one here is, what is it? It's a half liter, or this? Half liter. Half liter. So basically 1 kilo of قمح اللي هو الخبز اللي تاكلونه, when you throw it on the street, you know, you have to consider it that it require 1 kilo require 2,000 bottles of this water. 2,000 bottles of this water. So it's water. So you have to be careful. You know, the secret and the challenge facing us worldwide is water. So yes, technology is very important for the water. Thank you.
Dr. Kamal.
شادي حمادي بروفيسور ثاني من ثاني.
الله يرعاك.
بقي هون تطلع
إن شاء الله.
نتكلم مع بعض.
بين اتصال. هلا. الله يرعاك. شكرا حبيبي. الله يرعاك. هلا بك.
مرحبا دكتور رشيد.
هلا بيك.
Are you ready?
Always. Did I provoke you?
Thank you very much for promoting social farming. We need more champions in this. And since I'm a livestock scientist, and you mentioned the mara, and you know also that traditional agropastoral systems in the region are extremely important and resilient. So what's your position? I mean, do you in terms of you're comparing Marai and the traditional system that we have, how do you see the things that are developing specifically in the livestock sector?
Sorry for my ignorance, but I honestly didn't understand what was your questions.
You mean, do you promote the Mara'i model, or there is a chance that we promote our traditional agro-pastoral system and الأنظمة الرعوية، أنظمة الإنتاج الحيواني الرعوي التقليدي?
All the above.
Do you see that we can balance the two?
No, I don't need to balance anything. I need, if you saw what I put, we have 9 billion people are coming to this earth. We need the indigenous plant. We need the indigenous animals. We need the indigenous birds. We need the high-tech GMO. We need the modified gene. We need every area of the agriculture and the food industry. One of the great things about the FAO president, he came from Brazil, and before it was always forget the الحيوانات المحلية والطيور المحلية وركز على الهاي الهاي, as I said, the Yukoroho. It's an excellent, but Yukoroho is very highly susceptible, يعني معرض للصدى. So you need the local variety. They are adapted to the weather, adapted to the disease, but they don't have a good production rate, but they are secure. So you need all the above. I'm not using one area from the other area. I want to use all the above. We need to support all the above based on your strength. الميزة النسبية لكل منطقة. That's what you supported it. I hope I answered your question.
Dr. Turki, you mentioned, and I think I really like this, the future leadership of this region, and it will be the students. So we have a lot of very capable and great students. We're very proud that we have a diverse background of students, thanks to the MasterCard Foundation. We have students from Somalia, from Uganda, from Kenya, from Ghana, and I would really like to encourage the students also to ask questions and to show also what is this future leadership like. We will take over in a few years, and I'm sure we'll manage to make this region food secure. Please.
Thank you very much for your lecture this morning, and I'm going to try to follow your lead in being provocative. I want to challenge your assertion that we need to increase the amount of food produced by 70%. And I would say that the much larger issue is actually the distribution of food, not using increasingly more resources to produce more when it is greatly being wasted or consumed in much higher quantities than it should be. And with the title of Food Security in the Middle East, we have a very perfect example where you pointed out that in Saudi Arabia you're having very high levels of overweight and obesity, and then in Yemen we have a massive percentage of the population starving. And this just highlights the point that the larger issue is distribution. And so I'm wondering if you could discuss how you see the agricultural private sector enhancing distribution systems, or what their role in not necessarily producing more food, but in spreading the amount of food that already does exist.
I think about 4 years ago, I was giving a talk in front of 52 world leaders from the Commonwealth, and I was challenged by the Vice President of Nigeria, and I told them, you know, if you make $1 billion investment in the capital, you will have a lot of clubs and a lot of newspapers, but if you do a project or a road in the middle of the rural area for $100,000, you're not going to get anything. So therefore, you always are inclined to invest in big city, and you neglect the important. He promised to do something, and he did. But without roads, without access to the road, I'll give you an example. One of the first pioneers who started agriculture, heavy industrial agriculture, was President Gaddafi. He went in the middle of the desert, and he created the largest farming area in Libya. And he said, oh, we don't have any problem. We could produce all the potatoes. Yeah, one center pivot could produce enough potatoes for the entire Arab world's consumption. So, but he didn't put any roads. So what they did, they basically, when they harvested those potatoes, they dug a hole in the ground and they buried it there because there was no road for transportation. So it's a chain. Yani, when you talk about this, it's like this, you know. It's not one after another, you know. You have to have a road. You have to have a little bit of a hospital. You have to have a little bit of education in order to develop it. And people, yeah, there is, you know, they don't. It's easy for a politician to invest $1 billion in the middle of the capital, but it's very hard to invest a $10,000 or $20,000 road. I hope I answered your question. Transportation. Transportation, that's the number one.
We have further questions. Maybe
No. Okay. So, how do you control agriculture in such a way where you're going to modify the economy to make it sustainable for the world in such a way that you fight both inflation and unemployment without incurring another maybe necessary transitionary food crisis?
Good question. You're finished? Agriculture served double purposes, completely two different hats. One, which is you look at it from social, securities, unemployment, pre-education, which is social agriculture. And then the second aspect, which is a very heavy industrial, high-tech agriculture. Those two areas are completely separate and they have a two different aspects. For example, I could farm you 20 square kilometers with less than 20 persons. In fact, pretty soon we're going to have a tractors which will be a robot tractors. And that is a high tech. It's an industry. ما فيهاش شمر حميني. تربح وتستعمل the highest tech. It's an industry. And then the other industry, which is a lot cheaper than to buy airplanes and to buy missiles. So it's a two different aspects. Social agriculture تروح لهالقرية وتدعمها وتعطيها whatever they require because it improves your life. أتذكر the ministers of finance before the French Revolution, he said إذا ما حاربت الفقر والجهل الفقراء والجهلاء حيحاربونك. So you need to improve the life of people in the rural area from a securities, poverty's point of view. And then you go to agriculture industry and that is a completely different story.
Going to high tech will mean that you are putting people who plow the land out of jobs.
Yes.
And labor
Yes.
puts maybe the
Yes.
third of that.
Yes.
You put 1/3 of the people out of jobs.
Yes.
By giving jobs. But at the same time, you don't want to raise prices you don't want to raise, if you use high-tech technology, eventually that cost will be passed on to the consumer.
Yes.
So how are you balancing both?
You don't.
Okay, fine.
No, you don't at all. You don't balance it. It's a completely two different system.
Okay. That's all I want to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we have one final question by Ibrahim.
Okay.
No. Okay, let's collect three questions then. But please ask questions.
I am Yusuf Saadeh. I am an agriculture student at Alleviate. Most of us, when we graduate, we don't know what should we do. Should we go into research? Should we go into private sector? Or should we go into internships and then have like a master's in management? And what is very interesting in your successful story, that you kind of balance both of them. You are a professor at the University of Arizona, and you are the chairperson of a successful business. So what are the recommendations that you give to all the youth that is now listening to you?
Good questions. Now, let's assume, what's your name? Yusuf. When do you think you'll graduate?
There is two answers. First of all, that life as a school and
When are you going to graduate? Simple answer. When are you going to graduate from the AUB?
In 2 years.
In 2 years? Okay, so in 2020, you have your degree, and you walk into my office, and you want me to hire you, correct? My question to you, why should I hire you? Why don't you answer that question? Why should I hire Yusuf? What do you offer me beside your certificate?
The extracurricular activities like research and volunteering.
I'll give you a very quick answer. You have to know what is your strength. Work on your strength. Know what you want and write it down. Make your goals. Make 6 goals. One of my favorite lectures I always give is goals. Put your goals. Write them down. And convince me, when I'm sitting in this office, if you hire Yusuf, Yusuf will be the best investment in your life. If you don't sell me this, you're not going to get hired. So work on Yusuf. What is the strength of Yusuf?
Okay. So how should we work on our strength?
You know Yusuf. Do his SWOTs.
Well, I teach Yusuf, and I think he's an excellent student, so I'm very sure he would...
I'm sure. I'm sure.
I'm happy to provide the reference. Anyway, I think we should come to a close. Or
You promised 3 questions, so two more questions and finish.
And then please, Ibrahim. Sure. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So one of the questions which I have is mostly about the conglomeratization of the food supply chain, which you find that most today around the world, you find food is being privatized and controlled by Cargill, Bundy, and all that. How do you think local businesses and also smallholder farmers should be empowered, where the actual returns should actually be returning to these people, but it's not being ripped apart or being taken to these bigger profits that end up being taken somewhere into an international company which belongs somewhere in the USA, but the actual returns actually remain in the country? Thank you.
Are you from Uganda?
Yes, please.
Okay. The Ape area in Uganda, there is a lot of restaurants now are opening, and they are using the local meat and the local fish, chickens, and they're making very, very well. What you need to do is the segment of that market locally, you could capitalize on it and you could make a lot of profits out of it. You don't go compete with the international mafias and big. You compete where is the area you know how to swim in it. So it's a 2 different market. You can do it.
Well, I'm very sorry, but we have to close this meeting now.
Take the last one and we're finished. You promise him 3 and we take 1 more.
You ask him.
No. Okay, why don't you give that lady? She's a pusher.
Hi.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
You at AUD, I'm a professor in biology, and I was passing by here, and I saw that something exciting is going on.
Thank you.
Jumped in, and I just came from the U.S. I spent 18 years in the U.S. And there in the U.S. there is this general return to the local markets. But what I want to comment on is the amount of food that gets thrown in the U.S. and this culture of plentifulness, if you will. So in a way, the culture of eating much more than you really need must be revisited, I think, because I think we are consuming really, really much more than our bodies need biologically. I'm a biologist. So I don't think that when we were hunting, when we were running from the lion and hunting and gathering, I think we did with much less. So I think...
What's your question, Professor?
It was just a comment, I'm sorry. I was just excited to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. We're done.